Hello again, and welcome back to the final part of A Black and White Tale. It's chapter 10, in which legends are made. Nell couldn't see much, but she could hear well enough. The noise was horrendous. First came the roar of the hunters' boxes approaching, growing louder by the second. The whole area was flooded by light, and the badgers, used to seeing in the dark, all had to look away for fear of being blinded. The roar was followed by an ear-splitting crash, and the first people drove onto what they thought was a field, only to find the ground fall away beneath them. This was followed by another massive bang as the next hunters drove right into the back of the first ones. Then there came a series of bangs as people scrambled out of their boxes and started shouting at each other. Brian knew that the people's language was a peculiar thing, but these hunter people were making noises he'd never heard before. Inside the boxes, the dogs were barking frantically, and Brian could tell only too well what they were saying. He tried to cover Nell's ears so she wouldn't have to hear the awful things the dogs were shouting, but she batted his paw away. The people were very busy for a while trying to push the box out of the hole in the ground where it had become stuck. All the time they were shouting at each other and pushing each other. It sounded very much to Brian like they were all very angry with each other for what had happened. Eventually, one of the hunters got back into the box which was stuck in the hole and made it roar so loudly that Brian thought it would explode. But then with a hideous screech, the box suddenly shot backwards out of the hole, hitting the box behind it with another loud bang. Then there followed another long period of shouting and barking before the roar of the boxes began to recede into the distance as the hunters drove away. After all the noise, there was silence. This was followed by a soft rustling noise as the badgers crept out of hiding. One by one they emerged from the bushes and watched the lights of the hunters' boxes disappear into the distance. "So that's it," Nell said. "They've gone." "Yes," Brian said miserably, "but so has Barrington." Squish hopped down off the branch and sat next to Brian. "You tried to get him to leave," he said. "You couldn't have done more, Brian." "I should have tried harder," Brian said, "but he was such a stubborn, opinionated—" "Don't stop there," a voice said as a massive figure loomed out of the darkness. "Tell us what you really think." "Barrington!" Brian cried. "How did you get out?" "Well, I did what badgers do," Barrington replied. I dug myself a little tunnel off to the side, and I waited." "Oh, thank goodness," Nell said. "We were so worried about you." "No need, young lady," Barrington told her, placing a large paw gently on her head. "I wouldn't be as old as I am if I were that easy to kill." "You shouldn't take risks like that," Brian said. "The badgers need you." "No, they don't," Barrington laughed. "Badgers can always take care of themselves. As long as we breed smart young badgers like you, we'll be fine." "But you're a legend," Brian protested. "Then let's make a new legend," Barrington suggested, still amused. "Whenever badgers are in trouble, they will remember the name Brian. May they never forget." There. That's how legends start. Now I suggest we have something to eat, a bit of a rest, and then you can head off back home. If, that is, you can ever decide which way to go. "I think you should come with us," Brian told Barrington. "There's so much you could teach us." Barrington roared with laughter. Me? What can I teach you?" "It seemed to me that you've been doing all the teaching today, you and that clever young lady of yours." "Well, for a start," Brian began, "how do you see in colour?" "You can, can't you?" "That was the thing you talked about. The stories are true, aren't they?" "Well, yes, they are," Barrington replied, "but so can you, because you did when you were in the river. Everyone can see in colour, really, if they want to, or if they need to. The thing is that most of the time badgers don't need to, so they just don't. Practice, young Brian, that's all you need. Now come on, let's eat." Brian thought about this over the next day or two while he and his friends began to try and find their way home. He thought about it while he said goodbye to Barrington and his new badger friends. He thought about it as they trudged along the banks of the river in the rain, trying to find which way led back to their woods. And he thought about it later when the rain stopped and he and Nell and Squish and Whitetip stopped to sit on a log and rest for a while. Suddenly Whitetip pointed into the sky. "Oh, look, Squish," she squeaked, "a rainbow!" Brian stared into the sky, but all he could see was an arc of light. He stared and concentrated, and as he did so, the most beautiful colours began to emerge. It's incredible, Brian whispered. I've never seen anything like that. That is what the first drawing in the tunnel meant. Barrington must have left it there because he had seen a rainbow too. Do you know what I think? White Tip said. I think it's showing us the way home. I can't see it, Nell said sadly. Then I'll tell you, Brian said, taking her paw gently in his. First of all, there's red. It's not the same red as the squirrels, but it's the brightest, most beautiful red you ever saw. Then I think that's what everyone calls orange. And that is where we will leave them for now. A group of friends, sitting, staring into the sky, finding hope in the colours of a rainbow. The story of their journey home must wait for another day. And that other day will be tomorrow, when we start the final book in A Bushy Tale. Thank you for listening.